Hello, welcome to Eurosport's continuing coverage of the 2001 Formula 3000 Championship. Round 5, it's Monaco, the most prestigious racetrack that these guys will go to. 2000 pole sitter David Saelens and 2000 winner Bruno Junqueira. Saelens still in the field, Junqueira of course racing in the Indy 500 this weekend. Well, from one prestigious location to another, Indianapolis and Monaco, surely the world's most famous racetracks. And I think perhaps you might even argue that Monaco has got more than its fair share of glamour. These two young Brazilians certainly think so. The Sperafico twins, Antônio Pizzonia and Jamie Malo, their countrymen, joining them for a day out in the water on the week before the race. Well, because of the confines of this mountainside retreat, Monaco is a very tight, compact track.
Bienvenue sur Eurosport, ici à Monaco pour le 5e.
Oh, here we go. It's another racing driver trying to take jobs from commentators. This time David Saelens saying hello, welcome to Monaco. We'll be looking at the preview for the race. Unfortunately, it's a little bit grey today, but hopefully it'll be nicer for the race, he says. Well, before we get to the Formula 3000, let's have a look at how this afternoon's Formula 1 qualifying ended up. A last gasp lap by David Coulthard, snatching pole position back from teammate Mika Häkkinen. Häkkinen failed to improve on his final lap. Right behind him, though, Michael Schumacher did so to go second fastest. Rubens Barrichello is fourth. Great qualifying by Ralf Schumacher in the Williams to take fifth, ahead of an equally inspired Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar. Montoya and Trulli make up row 4 from Villeneuve and Fisichella, Alesi and Panis. And on row 7 of the grid, after a crash in the closing moments, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan leads the second Jaguar of Pedro de la Rosa. Kimi Räikkönen, his first ever appearance at Monaco on the inside of row 8, but out-qualified Nick Heidfeld, who of course raced here 2 years in Formula 3000 and won one of those. Jenson Button down in 17th place in the Benetton. Clearly their aerodynamic and speed problems not so much of a handicap around Monaco. He's ahead of Fernando Alonso. Then Verstappen, Bernaldi, Berti and Marquez make up the rest of the 22-car field.
Maintenant, un petit résumé de ce qui s'est passé au Grand Prix d'Autriche.
All right, says David, let's have a little look back at what happened last time out at Austria. Well, it was round 4 of the championship at the A1 ring, of course, and all eyes, in the audience at least, were on local hero Patrick Friesacher. Back for his second bite at Formula 3000, he was on the outside of the front row of the grid. Sébastien Bourdais on pole position, and as they raced up to the first corner, it was looking tightly bunched in the midfield. But the race leaders couldn't quite get themselves sorted out. Friesacher on the filthy dirty inside line, triggering off a multiple collision. Many other drivers coming down the inside also finding that grip was not just hard to find, but absolutely non-existent. The front row men were off, and the Red Bull Junior team was in disarray, both their cars out. Well, you can see the midfield men jostling for position further back, but outside, well, the front row man Bourdais not keeping Friesacher far enough behind, and Friesacher in the end just losing it completely in the dirt. Further back, similar incidents, taking out another half-dozen cars, fortunately without any injury. Well, the safety car rather predictably scrambled, but the race was not stopped. Getting ready to go for the restart, Bas Leinders, the Belgian driver, was close behind the safety car, but his rivals were close behind him. And Justin Wilson, who proved last year he knows a thing or two about restarting, was immediately all over the Belgian driver. The Nordic Racing teammates, Wilson and Enge, quick here as they have been everywhere else this season, and Wilson was soon past Leinders. Enge in third place. Antônio Pizzonia looking strong in fourth at this stage. Well, Chris and Derek Mower, the bosses of the Nordic Racing team, watching with interest as their boys went 3 abreast with Leinders. The Belgian was not about to give this one up, momentarily retaking the lead. at the Remus curve, but he was in too hot, and Wilson had a chance to come back. And this trio was to battle it out all the way to the line. Enge there deciding that two wheels on the grass coming up to the right-hander was probably not the most aggressive line he could have found, and dropping back in line astern. Well, as the race at Barcelona at round 3, so at round 4, the lead trio were very close together, but the status quo was maintained. Justin Wilson running out a very narrow winner in Austria. So Wilson from Leinders and Enge with Pizzonia, the only other man who seemed even remotely in touch with the front-running pace. And for Wilson, who came to Austria as the championship leader, confirmation that he is really in the form of his life. And once more, Nordic Racing, from 2 years ago being firmly planted in the middle of the grid, have shown that they have the equipment, the talent and the ability, and importantly now the confidence to take on and beat the best of Formula 3000.
It's the hardest race I've ever had in my career. It's to be in front, and the track was very slippery, so each time you braked, you're trying not to spin the car, so it's very difficult. Having Baz push me all the race, and you know, we had a good clean fight, which was very enjoyable.
It certainly must have been. It was great to watch. And you know, when drivers are in a battle that tough, the jubilation of winning in the end is even more. So rejoin us after the break, says David Saelens. We'll take a look at the latest news in the paddock. And he says there's quite a bit of it, which makes a pleasant change for Formula 3000, normally one of the most static championships in the calendar. So join us as we go back to Monaco in just a moment. Welcome back to Monaco, and news in the paddock for the Formula 3000's fifth race is that there has been a change in the lineup at the Red Bull Junior team. Riccardo Maurizio returns. He last raced with the team last year, and it's a bit of a surprise to see him back.
That was a good surprise for me as well. I had a call last race from Dr. Helmut Marko, and he said to me for me to come to Europe, that I would have a test with the team. And then depends of, you know, how I was going to go the test. I would be here racing, so it was like gambling. You know, I choose to, you know, to come. He said it's your choice if you want to come. I said okay, I come, and it was good testing.
Well, Riccardo's been out of the car for quite some while, and Monaco might be a bit of a baptism of fire getting back into it again.
I was 8 months without driving, and then when I got back again, this was a nice, you know, nice feeling again, and now even better, you know, because I'm racing. So we'll see if we have good results. Would be good for me and for the team as well.
Well, he knows the Red Bull team well, and even though they parted company midway through last season, clearly no hard feelings.
He just gave me the opportunity, and the only thing he needs is the results. Like, I need the results.
So an ideal situation, a driver with some experience, and both the team and driver need the motivation to do well. And Stefan Sarrazin also making a return to the Formula 3000 paddock. Now, Stefan, of course, is Prost's Formula 1 test driver, and he's been drafted in for this race alone, it seems, in the Prost Junior team. I've done a lot of testing with the Prost team because I'm their third driver, says Stefan. I've done quite a lot of driving as well because he's in the Chrysler Le Mans prototype project. He said, now I'm going to race here. It's a one-off, but at the moment it's a good opportunity for me, and Prost are my employers anyway, so why not?
Well,
3000 is a very specific championship. You can be right at the front or right at the back, depending on how well you're going. It's very difficult to stay on top. But he says, my objective is to fare as well as I can. Now, here he's being timed to the 5-second minimum to get out of the car. I've done 2 hours of testing in the car, very little time. We were only able to go to one track for a few laps, but it's allowed me to get back into the swing of it. I'm back on the track here and hopefully have a good feeling with the car as well. Well, of course, returning to Monaco, a racetrack he knows, but how does he think he'll fare in qualifying? Well, qualifying is longer than last year. Last year was 30 minutes, now it's 45 in each of the sessions, and that gives me a little time to readapt and to learn. So obviously I'll try for clear lap, but it's going to be tough. Hopefully there'll be fewer drivers. There's only 24, so I'll take it easy and do the best that we can. So Saelens suiting up for Formula 3000 for this unexpected return. As to David Saelens, we'll take a look at qualifying here in Monaco. Wasn't good for him, but last year he said I had problems with the engine, but judge for yourself how it went. Well, with 2 qualifying sessions, it was evident that most drivers would need to take it easy in the first, get a lap in the bank, and save their bravery and their new tyres for the second and final session, because if you crash in session 1, as Mark Webber proved last time, 2 times ago when they were in Barcelona, it almost wipes out your entire qualifying session. Well, Mark Webber was fastest, 1 minute 30.3, just 20 minutes into the session. Justin Wilson, the championship points leader, winner last time out, and he was second for quite some while. Sébastien Bourdais, who was on the outside of the front row last year, crashed in the first corner with David Saelens. He'll be hoping for better fortunes this year. Well, we'll try and react and change things to set the car up perfectly. I don't know quite what we need, but hopefully it'll be better in the second session. Otherwise we'll need to take risks, and that might be a bit of a problem when we're trying to get a good result. Well, David Saelens, who had been on pole last year, also fast early in the session. And despite that first corner clash in 2000, he actually finished on the podium in 3rd place. Talking about the marshals pushing his car back, he said I had a good rhythm, went off, marshals started pushing me, but when I got back to the pits I was told that I wasn't allowed to drive anymore. The rules say that if you've had outside help, then you must come back to the pits and finish your session there and then. So he said I lost quite a lot of time in the first session, and it's a bit of a shame. Stéphane Sarrazin, second in the first session, showing that he really has lost little of his touch. Quite an impressive performance. I mean, second, so on the front row, but not very happy. The car's got a few problems. Took me a while to get back into it. After a year out, it's pretty hard, actually, especially as Formula 3000 is pretty tricky to really get on it. He said, but I am happy, and hopefully we'll go quicker in the second session. So Mark Webber, fastest at the end, the only driver to dip into the 1 minute 29s.
I don't think it will be a pole time. The second session will be quick. I think we'll have a lot of people in the 29s, so we have to go a bit quicker yet.
So this is how they were after the first 45-minute session. Webber from Sarrazin, Tomáš Enge in 3rd, Patrick Friesacher ahead of Justin Wilson, the championship points leader, and Baz Leinders in 6th. Dino Morelli and Darren Manning both inside the top 10. So they are all looking quite strong, and noticeable that those who have never been to Monaco before, and particularly in a Formula 3000 car, languishing well down at the back, keeping their noses clean being the order of the first session. Well, plenty of viewing for this early morning session, even on £1,500 a night with a minimum of 5 nights staying at the Hermitage. You get the 9 o'clock wake-up call from 3000, whether you put Do Not Disturb on your door or not. 11 o'clock, the second session, and Mark Webber determined to try and get himself onto pole position again. Tomáš Enge in 3rd place early on, and the first driver to test the tyre wall at La Rascasse.
In Rascasse, I was maybe an hour the last 7 laps over motivated, and I made a mistake. I went too late on the brakes, and I locked up the rear, and it happened so quickly, and I finished in the M4.
Well, he wasn't the only one by some stretch. Riccardo Maurizio among those to test the tyres.
It was good to come back, and, I think from the time I was in the track was not that bad, come back after 8 months without racing and come back with the speed, so I'm quite happy with this, and the team is performing brilliant, so I think we see you tomorrow. Maybe I hope to do a good race, and the next one's go better qualifying.
Well, another Brazilian crashing at Rascas actually caused the session to be stopped. Jamie Malo was so far off it, he almost went in backwards, but his car, without a couple of its wheels, stranded in the middle of the track just as a bottleneck arrived behind him. So the session was stopped for 5 minutes. The Monaco marshals really very efficient indeed at clearing the track. Riccardo Sbarifico and his teammate in the two Petrobras junior cars spent a lot of time coming up this escape road, but they weren't the only ones either. Patrick Friesacher also going up there, and he would end up in 6th place at the end of the session.
It's my first time here in Monaco, and in the beginning was quite difficult, but I really like street circuits, so it was not a big problem. In the first session I was always in the top 4 or 3rd. In the end, I don't know, I have a flat tire or something, and I couldn't not go fast.
Yeah, look out for that truck there. Sébastien Bourdais, 4th earlier in the session, was eventually nipped down one to 5th place. It's very important to react quickly in a session like that with so many cars out, and to make changes fast to try and improve your time. If we hadn't improved, then I certainly wouldn't have been able to go faster. But it's looking positive, and tomorrow it'll be a long day, I hope, because I hope to get past the first corner this year. Well, Stéphane Sarrazin, an impressive return to form for the Frenchman. He will line up 4th place. Good comeback. I'm on the second row, he said. After the first session we were on the front row, so I had hoped for a little better, but there are a lot of crashes. It's hard to find a clear lap here with so many cars, and you know, like usual, I didn't really have the best of the opportunities, but I'm on the second row, so I'm pretty happy with that, and you know, anything can happen. Well, Darren Manning, 9th with just 5 minutes left, pushing very hard, but a great lap in the dying moments left him in 3rd place.
When we started the second session, I couldn't get any gears, and the car felt really good, but my lap times were competitive, so we came in and spent 20 minutes in the pit lane changing the gears, and then we just had to go out and just do it right at the very end. Got a little bit of traffic, but got a clear lap right at the very end.
Well, Justin Wilson had been on pole during the session, but in the end he was on the outside of the front row when all the clocks had stopped.
We made some changes and made it improve, so I felt as if it was in there for the pole, and I'm sure everyone else is saying the same thing, but whenever you're getting a good lap and you come round and there's cars off at Rascas or a place like that, it's very difficult to actually to complete the lap, so you just have to stop and wait for the track to be cleared and then carry on. So it's excellent for the team and for myself in the championship, but you know, unfortunately we're not quite on pole.
Well, Mark Webber was the man who took pole, but like David Saelens last year, he had set the pole time before crashing and then had to sit out for the last few minutes of the session. For Saelens, it was a nail-biting 15 minutes last year. For Webber, more like 3 or 4.
That lap was a good lap, and I had to keep pushing. I made a small mistake, and there's quite a bit of damage on the car, but it's not a tea party. We have to keep pushing. So it's a shame for the guys, because we've got a long night tonight, but at least we're on the front row, and I'll have to give them a present tomorrow.
Well, so Webber starting from pole, Wilson alongside, Darren Manning in 3rd, ahead of Stéphane Sarrazin, Sébastien Bourdais and Patrick Friesacher. Riccardo Sbarifico and Ricardo Maurizio, the Brazilians, 7th and 8th, ahead of Tomáš Enge. And then further down, Rodrigo Sbarifico going strongly here in 12th place. Impressive from him.
Bougez pas après la pub, c'est le départ en direct.
David Saelens says, don't go away, I'm just going to have a little rest before the race starts. Well, hopefully he will be back on the grid when we go back to Monaco in a minute or two. Stay with us. We'll be back as we return live to the Principality. Hello and welcome to Monaco for round 5 of the FIA Formula 3000 Championship. Good afternoon, welcome to Eurosport's continuing coverage of Formula One's training category. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, I'm delighted to welcome once more Jamie Davis. Jamie, you've got plenty of experience at this Monaco track, and again, it's the experienced drivers at the head of the grid. Any surprises?
No, not really. I mean, it's Mark Webber there on the front row with the Supernova car. I mean, that's pretty predictable. I mean, he done a good job yesterday. I mean, with the regular drivers being at the front, there is certain places around Monaco that you just have to know on the circuit, where the grip is, and I think basically that explains the grid.
Well, we've got one real disappointment for British fans, which is, I've lost his position now because of further back down, Dino Morelli down there in 18th place. Now, he had problems with the car and a crash as well, and from 18th, it's going to be a long afternoon of survival, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, the problem with Monaco, it's about the start. You've got to be aggressive on the start, but also careful because, it's so easy to make contact. Once the start, though, it's very difficult to pass.
Well, further back, the drivers, most of those guys also having incidents, guys like Derek Hill. There was half a dozen cars in the wall at La Rascasse during the final qualifying session. Among them, poleman Mark Webber, but he was fortunate to basically have got the best out of his car and his tyres before he went off in the last few minutes. Didn't stop him being very, very annoyed with himself, though. You didn't have to be a great linguist to be able to tell just how unimpressed he was with that. You also saw Sébastien Bourdais there, the man who started on the outside of the front row last year. And alongside him is Patrick Friesacher. Now, those two, you'll recall, were the front row men at Austria a fortnight ago. And they were, well, Friesacher perhaps a little ambitious into that first corner, particularly on the filth down the inside at Austria. Now, the inside line going down to Saint-Devote here at Monaco, also well off the racing line. Probably not the wisest place to be doing demon late braking here either.
No, I mean, the biggest problem with the start at Monaco is when you're going into Saint-Devote, the first corner, it funnels in. There's only one line through the corner. There's a lot of marbles on the inside and the very outside of the corner, so, you've just got to be really careful and try and keep it clean.
Well, everybody says, drivers, they're grown up, they're mature, they know that you can't win it on the first corner. However, the codicil to that is that at Monaco, if you don't make up any places off the grid into the first corner, it's going to be a long time before you do make them up. This is not as hard to pass a category as Formula One, but it's not easy by any stretch, is it?
No, you have the same problems as Formula One with the aerodynamics on the car. The modern age, it's just incredibly difficult to follow the cars closely. You do have one advantage around Monaco where it's relatively slow speed corners, so the aerodynamics aren't playing such a big part in the car setup. But, the biggest problem is it's so tight and narrow that you still can't go at the inside of a car to pass.
Yeah, what you need is somewhere that's as slow as Monaco but as wide as Silverstone, and then you're laughing. Unfortunately, as we've seen already in practice, the track is plenty narrow in places anyway, and in a lot of the corners the metal barriers have been protected by a couple of rows of tyres as well, which has taken a good 2 or 3 feet out of the width of the track. So it's even tighter. Well, there you see the championship standings. Of course, Justin Wilson on top of the championship. Mark Webber with 10 points. That was garnered for winning at Imola. They're his only points of the season so far. And it's been the one highlight in what has so far been a pretty tough grind for Webber. He's looked promising, but has just not had really much luck at all to go with it. And I think it's important now, race 5 of 12 rather than 5 of 10, as it might have been in previous years at round 5. He still really needs to score here and score big if he's going to continue to chase Wilson for the championship. So cars getting ready to go. Final handshake of good luck from Chris Mower for Justin Wilson there on the outside of the first row of the grid. Mark Webber getting ready to lead them around. All the slave batteries taken away, clearing the grid. Everybody jumping over the pit wall into the very narrow confines of this Formula One pit. It's really just a little wider than a pavement, in fact, and not an awfully good place to be working, but well, Monaco has its own attractions, the history of the place, the drama of the place. It's hard to deny it's still a sexy place to go motor racing.
I think now, with Justin on this green flag lap, that he really needs to lay quite a lot of rubber down for the beginning here, because the problem is you're on the marble on the outside there, and that's going to make it difficult for the start unless he gets some traction.
Well, here's something that we don't want to see in a lap's time. That's Gabriele Lancieri in the Durango machine, waving his hands. His car has either died or he has managed to stall it as they go away on the green flag lap. That's what's called tough in the trade. He will have to start right at the back. In fact, I'm not sure whether the marshals will drag him back and push him into the pit lane. I think it rather depends on whether they can get it to bump immediately. If they can't, then he will be starting from the pit lane if the team can fire the engine at all. So around this historic Monaco track they come, and we were speculating earlier on this afternoon, Jamie, that the qualifying times half a second pole slower this year than last, and possibly just down to temperature or a slight change in the track. You know, diesel left by a lorry or something the day before, because the qualifying for Formula 3000 was pretty early in the morning. Whatever, I'm sure, even though they were half a second a lap slower in qualifying, the race is going to be just as tough for these guys as ever it has been. It's hot and sunny, 37 degrees of track temperature at the end of the Formula 1 qualifying session an hour ago, 26 degrees of air temperature. It's going to be stiflingly hot sitting on the grid and then working these cars around for an hour of the Monaco track. Mark Webber leads the Formula 3000 field round to the grid at Monaco. His first Monaco street race pole position. And alongside him will start championship leader Justin Wilson. Darren Manning in third from returning driver Stefan Sarazan. Sébastien Bourdais in fifth. Patrick Friesacher, his nemesis at Austria last time out, will start alongside him in sixth position. And behind them, everybody, with the exception of Gabriele Lancieri, who should have started 20th, but his engine failed to fire, or failed to get him off the line for the green flag lap. So Lancieri will be starting right at the back. Well, very tense moments indeed for the drivers as they file onto this grid. Many of them for the first time. Of the drivers who were here 2 years ago, just 3 in the championship, and 2 of those have returned for this weekend. So a lot of young names and young faces hoping to make their mark here at Monaco. Of all the races to win in the year, to say I've won at Monaco must surely be one of the greatest things that a driver can claim. Webber and Wilson, Manning and Sarazan, and the rest of them lined up behind. 22 cars. Everybody's heart on 120 BPM, waiting for the lights. There is the Aussie, looking for his second win this season. Victor comfortably from pole position at Imola. Let's see if he can do it here again. The sequence is well known. The 5 lights come on. There's a hold. And when they go off, away they go. Good clean start from the front row men. All 6 getting away nicely. Little bit of a wiggle there from Friesacher. That'll allow Mara Haberfeld to come up in. Oh, and Wilson caught by Manning. I think he probably survived though, Jamie, but that was again down the inside.
That was, you know, that was a very close one there for Wilson. It looks like he's kept going, but I bet his heart's pounding now.
Darren Manning in second place, Wilson in third, and trailing something from behind the car, and that'll be the bottom of his... No, it's Manning's wing. It's stuck underneath the bottom of Wilson's car, so Darren Manning is out of the race already. He will have to come into the pits, and whether Justin Wilson's car keeps going or not remains to be seen. Sébastien Bourdais in fourth place. No, it's Sarazan in fourth place, Bourdais in fifth place, and as we saw there, well, a big bottleneck there at the hairpin, but he's already thrown off Manning's wing, so Wilson's car should probably keep going from that, but you always have to worry about the gearbox's chances of surviving an hour now. And I think we're going to see a red flag. There's no way they'll clear that bottleneck up. And there's somebody up at the top of the hill. We can see both. There at the back there was Verano, but the other pale blue machine there stuck further down the grid. Well, Webber has got the hell of a lead, but at the very least we will have a safety car now. And there is Darren Manning further back. Well, if he dives into the pits, well, you never know. He might make it into the points again, because if there is a stoppage, then having not completed a full lap, they will have to go for a full restart, and Darren Manning may have a chance there. There is the 30 car of Jamie Malo. He was the name I was struggling for, who had spun across the track, and bizarrely it was Malo who caused the stoppage of the qualifying session. And that's what Mark Webber did not want to see, the safety car boards, and that must be very disheartening for the Aussie, who could see nothing in his mirrors, surely, as he came down the pit straight, no one behind him.
Absolutely. I mean, I think Justin's actually, you know, he's really lucky that the rear wing, the front wing of Darren Manning's car has come, you know, off from the back of his car, because that could have been a big problem. They would have called him into the pits for sure, and that would have messed his race.
Well, we have lost Darren Manning into the pits, but the leaders following the safety car round. In fact, the leaders all passing the safety car there through Casino Square, and this is the real reason. Not quite sure who that is down on the inside. Let's think who it might be. It might be Gabriele Verano in the second Prost car. It looks like it's quite possibly the Prost. So we got Webber from Wilson, Stefan Sarrazin in third, Sébastien Bourdais in fourth, then Riccardo Sperafico and Riccardo Maurizio, then Patrick Friesacher and Tomáš Enge, and then Golin and Haberfeld, Rodrigo Sperafico, Baz Leinders, and it is the 12th car of Gabriele Verano. So we've lost Verano. Looks like he was nerfed. We saw that bottleneck approaching on the downhill section. Not quite sure who he was alongside, but we also seem to have lost Andrea Piccini, Jamie Malo and Derek Hill. And I think he may have made contact with Verano. Looked as though it may have been Hill's car. Well, away from the start, was there something further back on the grid that we missed as we were watching the leaders? No, they all got away cleanly for the second time of asking. But down the inside, Darren Manning on the dirt catches Justin Wilson from behind. And Wilson, well, he caught him early enough that Wilson was able to correct that and somehow get through the corner as well.
He's lucky.
Yeah, that was fortunate indeed. You don't get too many lucky breaks when you get thumped up the backside at Monaco, and I'd have to say that was one. So we are under safety car with a lap completed, the leaders on lap 2. We'll be back in a moment. Join us again from Monaco as we continue with round 5 of the championship. Welcome back live to Monaco, race 5 of the Formula 3000 Championship. We're under safety car, they're on lap 3 at the moment, lights still on as they clear up the debris down at the Lowe's hairpin. Well, the tightest corner on the track, or one of the tighter corners on the track, perhaps La Rascasse as well, where you're on the lock stops on the way through, is just as tight, but Lowe's hairpin, well, it's always a potential for disaster on the first lap. Everybody can rush down the hill, but it's getting round the corner at the bottom that's the problem. So here we are, 42 of the 45 laps remaining. We reckon it should take about an hour, so probably out to about an hour and 5 minutes now. Still yellow flags there. Can't see why particularly. There's no work going on, and all the marshals back in their posts. Mark Webber leading comfortably after the first lap. Justin Wilson surviving by the skin of his teeth from being hit from behind by Darren Manning into the first corner at Saint-Devote. And Darren Manning has headed off, I'm sure, into the pit lane. And he'll be very disappointed with that. Third on the grid, a great result after some trying times in qualifying. Darren's 16th at the moment. And yes, our screen showing he, David Saelens and Dino Morelli have all made a pit stop. Well, we saw Dino coming back out of the pits. Dino's down in 20th place. And the last of the cars running, I think. So Webber's gap, which was probably about a second and a half, 2 seconds as he came across the line ahead of Justin Wilson. I'm sure as he came across the line, maybe had a glance in his mirrors again and couldn't see anybody right up his exhaust. I'm sure he thought, oh, God, no, something's gone wrong. It must be halfway between yes and then suddenly thinking, but why?
Yeah, for sure, it's very frustrating. I think the safety cars come in, so it looks like we'll have to restart now.
So ready to go green then. The green flags are waving as they restart. Mark Webber gets it underway once more. Justin Wilson behind him. There on the inside of the first turn, Saint-Devote, the statue of the winner of the first ever Monaco Grand Prix, unveiled last week to a very interesting character. William Grover Williams, or Williams as he was known, won the first Monaco Grand Prix race in a Type 35 Bugatti in 1929, and then went on to become a secret agent during the war. A very, very larger-than-life character, and well worth finding out about him. But at the moment, it's winning the support race that is foremost in the mind of these men. Mark Webber leads them away, and Justin Wilson, well, unlike the A1 ring, unable to try and make a move at the restart here. I think he's already settling down into a war of nerves and attrition with Webber out front. Sarrazin in third place, under pressure from Bourdais, and then in fifth and sixth, Ricardo Speraffico and Ricardo Maurizio, the two Brazilian drivers. Maurizio making his return to Formula 3000, courtesy of Dr. Helmut Marko, and leading Patrick Friesacher, his teammate, who's right behind. And there is Tomáš Enge, the next car through. Then the best of the Coloni cars, Fabrizio Golin, then Mario Haberfeld, ahead of the second Coloni car of Rodrigo Speraffico. Baz Leinders in 12th place, and Jamie Davis, Mark Webber starting to ease away a little here, and Justin going with him. Again, I think we're probably going to see these two driving away from the opposition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Justin's going to be very keen to stay with Webber at the beginning of this the race. I mean, he can't afford really for him to get away. He wants to keep the pressure on him all the time, because the biggest thing with Monaco is, okay, you can't pass, but it's very easy to push somebody into mistakes, so that's what he's going to be aiming to do.
Well, he leads by 0.6 of a second, but Wilson already 0.6 ahead of Sarrazin. There we can see the Durango car, of course, going across, which was Giorgio Pantano, across the new chicane. Pantano down in 13th place. And it looks as though Stefan Sarrazin in third place is a bit of a cork in the bottleneck, because the Frenchman there in the dark blue machine is losing touch with Webber and Wilson, and he's got Sébastien Bourdais right up behind him. Bourdais there sliding wide as they came down towards Portier.
See, Webber's definitely turning up the heat. He's definitely he's trying to pull away from Justin on these opening laps. He knows it's a danger. If he can make a break early on, then that's going to make his life a lot easier once the tyres start going off later.
Well, with a slightly shorter version of the races this year, with just 45 laps here, it's still pretty tough on the tyres, all the stop-start, all the low-speed corners, because the more traction becomes a premium, I presume, the more you actually start to degrade the tyres as they slide and spin.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably one of the toughest circuits. You know, it's tough on the cars, it's tough on the gearbox, it's tough on the tyres, it's tough on the drivers physically and mentally. I mean, it's a great deal of concentration. You know, the very slightest error, and, you know, you're in the wall.
Well, this is like Formula 1 used to be maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Manual gearboxes, slidey tyres, no traction control systems or anything else. So a lot of that is keeping the car alive and nursing it through, and that's going to be very much a factor of it. And I think one of the drivers who's in danger of not doing that at the moment is Sébastien Bourdais. Again in fourth place as he came out of Virage Antonieux, the last one on the track, sliding out towards the barriers, right up behind Stefan Sarrazin. And to be doing that 5 or 6 laps in, you're going to run out of tyres very early in the race.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, it's not good to be sliding the car around too much, because the rear tyres are going to go off, and then you're going to be getting a lot of oversteer later on and losing the traction. You just see Mark Webber there, who's just set another fastest lap of the race, so he's obviously pushing quite hard now.
Well, I think Webber really feels that he needs to nail this one and get it in the bag, because you know, he's had the bad luck in the season when he's been running well. You know, Brazil's second, 6 points, would have made such a difference if he'd been able to keep them, but he was pinged for passing, you know, with the yellow flags out them. And things like that really just kind of eat away a little bit at your self-confidence, I think, and Webber's sort of bounced back from that with an awful lot of determination to really do well here. So Webber leading by 1.1 seconds last time round from Justin Wilson. And the battle for third, Sarrazin there, the blue car, Bourdais, the black car. They're starting to leave Ricardo Maurizio and the rest behind. They've got Ricardo Speraffico in the Petrobras Junior car, sort of for company, but he's another few car lengths back, and it'll be a mistake from the others that gives him anything at this stage. Maybe, though, wise with the way that Bourdais' car is sliding around not to be right up behind him so early on. There you see the two Red Bull Junior cars. Ricardo Maurizio ahead of Patrick Friesacher. Maurizio getting a little bit wiggly out of Massenet and into Casino Square, and as a result, Friesacher having a think down towards Mirabeau. Interesting to see the difference between the two drivers. Helmut Marko, Jamie Davis feeling that with Friesacher, not the most experienced of 3,000 drivers in the team. He really needed to get, I think, a bit of a benchmark with two young guys and the cars not performing the way he wanted to. Time to sort of out with the old and in with the, well, older, or out with the new and in with the old, perhaps.
Sure, I mean, I think Dr. Helmut Marko is going to be a little bit concerned maybe at the moment with those two fighting. I mean, he's already had two of his cars go off together. I think it was at Imola this season already, so I mean, okay, it's a different driver with Mauricio this time, but, you know, for sure he's still going to be a bit concerned.
Well, regular viewers of Formula 3000 on Eurosport will remember Riccardo Mauricio being involved in Red Bull versus Red Bull clashes, which took cars out of races as recently as last season. In fact, I seem to recall that was partly the reason. Generally, the acceptance was that he and Red Bull parted company last year. But David Saelens in the barriers. The Belgian driver, well, he was on pole position last year. This year, qualifying nothing like last year's. And, yeah, out of the swimming pool complex. Let's have a look and see what the replay tells us. Oh, my goodness. Ooh. Well, that was ambitious, to say the least, to try and dive down the inside of Giorgio Pantano there. Jamie, is it Pantano makes a mistake there that allows Saelens to close so quickly, do you think?
Yeah, it looks like they're, you know, they're all certainly closing in on each other a little bit there, and it looks like he's just got caught out, I think, really on the braking. Didn't realise quite how slow the cars were going in front, and locked the inside front wheel, was unable then to stop, mounted the car in front, and unfortunately that's the end of his day.
He was caught out and unable to avoid that from a long way back, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. I mean, it's strange actually though why he stopped there. I don't understand. I mean, you know, he never actually touched the wall. He lost the front wing, but why he stopped, I don't really understand that.
Well, he may possibly have lost the engine as well, I suppose, if it was all getting locked up, and I don't know, maybe a gearbox or an engine problem as well contributing there to his problems.
Quite possibly.
Mark Webber leading now by nearly a second and a half from Justin Wilson, 8 laps in. And behind them, well, 2 seconds further back now, Stefan Sarazan. So Wilson and Webber, although they are spreading out, are definitely the pair of them leading everybody else. And Bourdais now calming down a little bit in 4th place, or dropping back a little bit in 4th place. Webber locks up there going into Saint-Devote. And already showing just how hard he's pushing. Now, he's going to have to be careful, because a couple of little mistakes like that, you can be very fortunate to get away with one. You'll be extremely fortunate to get away with 2 or 3 here.
Yeah, it's very easy actually going into that corner. The road is very bumpy as you're breaking into that corner. You need to ride in the middle of the road, but sometimes you can just lock up the inside wheel as you're braking, pushes you about a foot wide, and then you're into the wall on the exit. So, you know, you've got to be careful with that, but it is easily done.
Riccardo Mauricio still under pressure here as they come down from Mirabeau to Lowe's. That's Patrick Friesacher right behind him. Friesacher racing in last year's German Formula 3 Championship, but did race half a season in Formula 3000 in 1999, and then decided to kind of regroup and get himself together. I think perhaps one of those drivers who just hit 3000 a little too early in their career, and certainly seems to be having a much fairer stab at it this year with another year of experience of racing in what is a pretty tough championship, the German F3 Series. Right behind them, Tomáš Enge. It was Enge's crash at Raskas early in the second session of qualifying that was his undoing. He was at 3rd on the grid in that stage, but was unable to improve in the second session, and he was one of only 3 drivers who failed to improve. And yes, all the others had also tasted the tyres at the Raskas, but slightly later in the session. So Enge stuck behind these two, and with the prospect of probably being there for quite some while, in brackets, until they tangle with each other. So I'm sure he'll be hoping for that, probably more than Dr. Helmut Marko is hoping that they don't. 10 laps in then, and Mark Webber still leading this race from Justin Wilson. Well, Jamie, at what stage do you think Webber's going to get to a lead? What would you consider, if you were out front, would be a comfortable lead where you're going to come back from 105% just to sort of 99% on the speed?
It's difficult to you know, to call what a comfortable lead is really. I mean, at the moment, looking at the time monitors, I'd say Webber's taken about 2 to 3 tenths a lap out of Wilson. So if he keeps up that pace, you know, he's going to build up a couple of seconds by the end of the race. So I'd imagine if he could build up maybe a 3 second to 5 second buffer, then he'll feel fairly comfortable.
Well, there you go, the number 6 machine diving down the inside. Giorgio Pantano, none the worse, it seems, for being hit by David Saelens, still looking pretty aggressive in the midfield. And Pantano chasing, that must be Gabriele Lancieri. I think that's only got one Durango car left. According, yes it is, that's for 13th place. Ricardo Sferifico right in front of them is in 12th. And then Antonio Pizzonia in 16th. So that's that little group. 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th. 15th place for identification is Darren Manning, the red car with the white noseband. So Darren, with his new nose, well, down in the low teens and a long way away from any chance of a point at the moment. I don't suppose that'll stop him making his best efforts. Webber goes across the line again faster. First now of the 131 laps. First man into the 31s, 131.91. Justin Wilson doing a 132.5 last lap, so 6/10 all but. That's a big gap that he's really pulled one out on that lap. And here is our race leader, confirmation of that fastest lap there. So Justin, well, a little early to be sort of sitting back and having a think about it, but maybe as we saw that little lock-up from Webber the previous lap, maybe another one somewhere from Wilson, just giving himself a little bit of a scare, getting a fraction closer than he wanted to the barriers.
It's quite possible, actually. I mean, you know, Justin doesn't really want to drop any further back than that. He needs to really be as close as he can to Mark Webber and just push him as hard as possible. You know, there's nothing worse around the streets of Monaco to have a car sitting in the mirrors just moving around. You know, it just takes away the concentration and just that moment lapse of concentration around this place, and it's, you know, misery and end into the wall.
Well, I suppose part of the danger here for a driver who is chasing is that they get into a rhythm that is just a fraction slower than the leader. Now, whether that's the rhythm that the car will actually deal with, and you're going to have to start driving it a little more ragged to catch the leader, or not, I don't know. Maybe, you know, Wilson needs to still just keep being aggressive rather than smooth as he continues to chase. Mark Webber leading Justin Wilson after 12 laps of the Monaco Formula 3000 race, and the two race leaders, 131.88, 131.99, 11 100ths of a second between them on the last lap. So again, Wilson drops back from 2.0 to 2.1 seconds behind. And Jamie Davis speculating that Justin is getting into a rhythm that's possibly not quite quick enough. Is that the way it is, or is it something that's just preventing him from going any faster?
Yeah, I mean, for sure he's going to be pushing as hard as he can, you know, to try and get on the back of Webber. But you know, unfortunately, it could be something to do with his setup on the car. Maybe the car will come in a bit later into the race. You know, it does vary around this circuit. Some people may be running a little bit softer than other people, and the tyres would go off sooner if they're, you know, a bit stiffer with the setup. So. Very difficult to tell. It may be that Mark Webber is running a slightly stiffer car, which means that the tyres will be working well earlier in the race, but they will go off sooner. So, you know, we'll see what happens later on.
So the gamble there is that you have a car that you like, that you can build your advantage with, and then hope that you've got enough left at the end to hold on to it. Yeah. Well, this is one of the imponderables, obviously, from sitting and watching without access to exactly what every driver has done with his car. That's one of the joys of sitting and watching it from the ringside, if you like, is trying to figure out exactly why people in identical cars with identical engines and identical tyres are not going at identical speeds.
It looks like Justin is actually, he is turning up the heat now a little bit. He's beginning to get closer to Mark Webber's times. He was only 5 thousandths of a second slower then, so you know, if he can keep going like that, maybe the roles will reverse and he'll start taking some time out of Mark Webber.
Interestingly, that Stefan Sarazan in third place also seems to have found top gear, metaphorically, because he is right on the pace as well there. He's only, well, just a fraction over 2/10 slower than the leaders on that lap, and even quicker than him again, Sébastien Bourdais in fourth place. So it looks as though Bourdais is now relaunching his attack as we watch Mario Haberfeld there in 10th, Baz Leinders behind him in 11th place. Another tight little battle, and this is the way these Monaco races break up, don't they, into little cliques of guys having a go at each other, and if one breaks away, then he's gone, because there's still a battle behind that slows everybody up. David Saelens, well, out of it, as we saw there. He ran into the back of, I've forgotten, Giorgio Pantano's car. Pantano with the yellow car in the back of the shot here, still racing though, so we've seen now two cars hit from behind, which normally is a bit of a disaster, both surviving. There you see Antonio Pizzonia right ahead of the number 5 car of Dino Morelli, and Pizzonia, having practiced countless times in qualifying going up the slip road there at Saint-Devote, has managed to finally get his braking point pretty much right. Stays ahead. There's Haberfeld again in 10th place, Bas Leinders behind him in 11th place, and then that battle behind, 12th onwards. In 12th place is Riccardo Sperafico. Gabriele Lancieri is the pale blue car, and he has got Giorgio Pantano. Oh, having a look down the inside at Saint-Devote. Yeah, that was a testing move, and it will certainly rattle Gabriele Lancieri, I think, a little, that suddenly, as he's just about to turn in, there's this big flash of yellow in the mirrors, and I think perhaps more than an actual passing manoeuvre, that's probably what was intended there by Pantano.
Yeah, I think he thought better of it.
By Dino, rather, yeah. Well, Dino's experienced enough to know that coming from that far back he wouldn't get through, but he's experienced enough to know that jumping around is going to pile pressure on, and, you know, Lancieri stalled on the warm-up lap, and he's a young guy with not the experience that Dino has, so...
That's right.
This is where experienced drivers start to pray, I think, don't they?
We'll see how Dino goes. You know, I mean, he should be able to hound him and possibly make the other guy fall into a mistake. So you know, we'll see what happens there.
So Mark Webber still leading. And in fact, I'm saying it's Dino Morelli, but it's not. It is Giorgio Pantano, and I think I'm getting myself really confused with the two Astromega cars, because they're both yellow. The drivers' helmets are fairly similar, and in the entry list, Pantano is supposed to be 5, Morelli is supposed to be 6, and I did just read that as the number 5 car there chasing, but on our timing screen it's the number 6 car, so I don't know if we're having a transponder problem or it's just I'm having an eyesight problem. But according to our timing screen, it's Pantano chasing Lancieri, and Dino is back in 17th place chasing Antonio Pizzonia. Well, here is the battle for 10th place again. Go on then, give us your input on that.
I mean, he was just went for the inside there. There was no move. I think Mario had already started turning into the corner, and he just had to back out of it right at the last minute. I mean, very lucky to avoid contact there.
He did manage to do so, but look at the ground that he lost as a result there, from being right up Haberfeld's exhaust pipe to being in the back of, well, right in front of the next group then, in fact. So that sort of battle is over. Right, now I'm getting there. There you go. There is Dino at the back, the yellow car there. You see, there's 2 yellow cars in the same pack. That's why I'm getting so confused. Apologies, viewers. Obviously, you're shouting at the screen, telling me exactly what's going on, but, you know, that's life.
See a turn up for the books just then on the last 2 laps. It looks like that Wilson's taken 2 tenths out of Webber on each lap, so maybe it's changing now, and it's time for Justin to push on a bit.
Well, a third of the way into the race, even by my rudimentary arithmetic, 15 of 45 laps done. 2.3 seconds is the gap first to second. And there you're looking at Darren Manning chasing Rodrigo Sperafico as you watch the leaders come up the hill, the very steep run up Beau Rivage into the long sweeping left-hander at Massenet, and then through into the Casino Square. Wilson fastest of all, Webber fastest of all again, 1:31.2, and Wilson 1:31.5, so 3 tenths quicker, responding nicely there to the challenge.
Definitely, that's right.
Excellent stuff. Third of the race done. Mark Webber still leads from Justin Wilson. Join us for more in a minute. Eurosport back live at Monaco, round 5 of the FIA Formula 3000 Championship, being led by Mark Webber from Justin Wilson. Change while we're away at the break for 6th position. The 2 Red Bull Junior cars have swapped positions. Patrick Friesacher getting ahead of Riccardo Maurizio for the final point. And into the pits from this battle here has come the, well, I won't tell you what number car it is, the Astromega car of Giorgio Pantano. Now, Pantano, you remember, was hit from behind by David Saelens in the swimming pool complex a few laps ago, and possibly Jamie Davis, a legacy of that, forcing the car into the pits.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there is a possibility of that. I mean, we haven't seen any pictures, you know, to back that up, but, you know, for sure that could be one of the reasons.
Well, we saw a moment or two ago Mark Webber responding to a little spurt of fast laps by Justin Wilson by putting in a few more of them of his own, and you were saying that because of the nature of Monaco, fast laps don't come consistently, they come in fits and starts. Explain why that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Monaco is because it is so mentally and physically demanding, you know, there's no straights really to take any rest. You know, you're constantly on the go all of the time, pushing the car to the limit. So to try and set fastest laps at qualifying pace every lap through the race is just practically impossible, you know. I mean, you'll see sort of swings and roundabouts where a car will pull away for a couple of laps and then the car behind will then regain again, and it's just purely because the drivers have to, they're pushing for maybe 3 or 4 laps hard, setting fastest laps, and then they'll just back off. Only maybe like 2 or 3 tenths, but it's just enough just to let it recover a little bit before you have to push again.
And you're saying as well, fitness very much a part of the equation on such a demanding, constant action track as Monaco as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, the heart rate is right up, at nearly maximum all the way through the race. The breathing is incredible. I mean, it's just like sprinting, a 100-meter sprint, when you're on the fastest laps, when you're pushing really hard. It's just unbelievable to think that, you're just sat there turning your steering wheel and breathing that heavily.
So you're really literally puffing and panting as you're driving around.
Well, you're having to work quite hard at the wheel, and it's just a very, very physical circuit.
Well, you see, now that's an aspect that from sitting at the ringside you really don't get full view of. Out of the number 6 on Giorgio Pantano's car, so the timing and scoring is right, and I'm just dull. Out of the pits he comes. Well, I wonder whether perhaps something came loose at the back after that impact. Maybe his wing started to wobble or something, or perhaps he's just had a lock-up and blistered a tyre and had to come back into the pits.
Could well have been a puncture. Possibly the front wing of the car just touched the rear tyre and caused a little slit, and then it can gradually just go down.
Well, here's Tomáš Enge chasing Riccardo Maurizio. Maurizio now down in 7th place, having been passed and completely left by Patrick Friesacher. As you can see, the other Red Bull car nowhere in sight. Tomáš Enge still bottled up behind, but the fact that Friesacher has managed to get by must give Enge at least some hope that he can. Of course, what he probably understands is that wherever Friesacher got by, and we didn't see it on the cameras, Riccardo Maurizio will be wise to that one, so he'll have to try and find somewhere else. Mario Haberfeld still under pressure from Bas Leinders. And again, Jamie, you're saying how physical it is. It must be doubly hard to be pushing so close to the car behind like Leinders is here. Yeah,
it's just a concentration level, really. You've got to keep up the pressure on the guy in front. Here we go.
And there is Friesacher.
Stop.
And he has gone off at Sandevot. And there in the background, you can see the sculpture I was talking about earlier of Williams,
kept the engine running,
first winner of the Monaco Grand Prix. But Sandevot, well, again, catching himself out. Plumb centre in the middle of the road, but just getting the braking wrong on the sequence of bumps there. So Friesacher drops down the order. He had been in 6th place, don't forget, but he's now well back. And here is our race leader.
Into the swimming pool section. This is a great part of the circuit here. The minimum speed through that left and right corner there is 105 miles per hour. So, you're not hanging about there. It's nearly flat and full.
Well, all the Monaco playboys in their 355 Maranellos and Ferrari F50s would be thrilled with that. Close up on the back. Oh, goodness me. Well, we didn't see why Pantano went into the pits, but that might explain something. So Pantano getting himself tangled up there rather badly with Lancieri.
Slightly worse than a puncture, that one.
Yeah. Well, whatever it was, Lancieri's out of the race, but Pantano back in. And here again, Mario Haberfeld in 10th place, Bas Leinders in 11th. Oh, of course, no, they won't be now. That's why the captain said they were 9th. Our screen is a lap out of date because Friesacher has dropped down behind them after his little excursion at Sandevot.
I think this could be interesting here if Leinders just keeps up the pressure there on Haberfeld. It's possible that Haberfeld will make a mistake in the end. He is definitely close enough to worry him.
Well, Leinders, worry is exactly the right word. Actually, like a terrier, he has been really badgering him right from the first corner with absolutely no let-up. And it must be killing Leinders to do it, but sooner or later, he's probably going to end up forcing a mistake out of Haberfeld. There's no flipper finger, semi-automatic gearboxes, fully automatic, clutch control, blah, blah, blah on these cars. It's all done by manual gear shifting. And sooner or later, somebody is going to miss a gear and give the guy behind or the guy ahead a bit of a break. And it might just as well happen here. Riccardo Maurizio now back up into 6th place. Tomáš Enge back up into 7th as Friesacher has dropped all the way down to 15th place from 6th. after just making that mistake at Saint-Devote. So even when you don't hit something and break something, mistakes are costly enough here, aren't they, Jamie?
That's right, exactly, yeah, you know. I mean, Thomas is going to be quite keen, really, I think, now to get this point. You know, he's in 7th place at the moment. He's going to want to go away with some points this weekend, so, you know, he's going to be pushing now as hard as he can, trying to make a mistake.
Very close indeed to the back of the Haberfeld machine there as they came out of La Rascasse. I did think for a moment he was just going to touch him. And maybe that slow exit out of Rascasse and onto the straight has cost him, because as they come up Beau Rivage, he's not in touch as he was when they came through Tabac.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a faster part of the track there. I mean, you know, Mauricio can just make a little bit of a gap there through the higher speed corners, because again, with the downforce, it's difficult to follow, but you'll probably find him now on this little bit. He'll close up again. Very
low speed, very tight and twisty here, and it really does plummet downhill. You don't get much of a view of it from that overhead camera, but if you bear in mind that you're looking up at a sharp angle there and there's just a vertical wall that supports the first part of the run down to the Lowe's hairpin, it must drop sort of 50 or 60 feet from coming out of Mirabeau into Portier.
It's very surprising, actually. I mean, like you say, you don't see it on the camera. Always very close here into the chicane. He's
really
definitely working him hard. No, going back to the level of the circuit, you know, I mean, it drops down quite a lot. You don't really want to walk up the hill. I mean, it's quite hard work.
So they really thread themselves around the cliffside here at Monaco, eked out between France and the Mediterranean Sea. Battle for 6th place continues at Monaco with Riccardo Maurizio just holding off Tomáš Enge. Mark Webber, the race leader, fastest lap again, 1:30.605. And that last lap was 1.3 seconds faster than Justin Wilson. The gap has gone out now to 4.2 seconds. So again, as you were saying, Jamie, fits and starts. Clearly Webber has got his breath back and his head down and charging again, and I'm sure that as that has happened and Justin's seen him ease away a fraction more, then we will see a reply from Justin Wilson in the next lap or two.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, Justin's going to be pushing hard again, trying to close the gap, but at the moment, Mark Webber is just steadily increasing the lead up. He's up to 4.9 now, and you know, to be honest, that's a fairly big gap at this stage of the race now. So you know, as long as he keeps his head together and doesn't make any mistakes, it's going to be incredibly difficult, I think, for Justin to close back up again.
Well, we're right at the halfway mark. They've completed 23 laps of the 45, so just easing into the second half of the race. And as you say, nearly 5 seconds gap. That is a big margin. And in fact, Justin Wilson only 1.4 ahead of Stéphane Sarrazin. Sarrazin now easing away to 2.1 ahead of Sébastien Bourdais in 4th place. Then another 2 seconds back to Rodrigo Speraffico. And this battle is 14 seconds behind the 5th place runner. Speraffico having a boring afternoon all on his own, but I wouldn't think it's that boring for Riccardo Maurizio with Tomáš Enge for such close company here.
He's just trying to make him make a mistake, but at the moment Mauricio's keeping it on the road. He's keeping the car clean, not making any mistakes, and you know, the problem is with this circuit, you can't overtake. If you just place the car in the middle of the road into the key areas on the braking, like into the Lowe's hairpin, into Mirabeau, then it's just practically impossible for the car behind to get through.
You can be slow, but if you're steady in the middle of the road, that's pretty much job done, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, just sit it in the middle of the road and just maybe move it around just fractionally, just, you know, and the car behind is a little bit unsure, and, you know, they won't make a move on you.
Well, Dino Morelli, we're being shown here, slowing down into the chicane at the exit of the tunnel, nearly getting collected by Darren Manning. Dear, oh dear, that was close and not very nice. I wonder what's happened to Dino's car. Looks as though he's a little bit in neutral now.
Just showing him locking the wheel there.
Right, and that is Enge, isn't it? Yes. So presumably the result of that is that he's going to end up with a bit of a blister or a flat spot, and it's now going to start being even harder to drive because the thing will be vibrating.
Yeah, it can be, yeah. I mean, he may well have got away with it, but it looked like the front wheel was locked up for quite a long time there, so, you know, there's probably a little flat spot on there now.
I have to say, Tomáš Enge, again, always seems to me, you know, watching from the trackside as a driver who will drive it no matter what it's doing as hard as he possibly can. And so I imagine that he will probably still stay right up Riccardo Maurizio's exhaust, make it very unpleasant for the Brazilian for the remaining 21 laps.
I'd imagine. I mean, the problem is if he has flat spot at the tyre at all, I mean, you know, haven't seen any shots really to tell at the moment, but the problem is whenever you brake again, the car always finds the flat spot and it increases it and makes it worse and worse.
Oh, and
Pizzonia?
Yep, that is Antônio Pizzonia. Well, Pizzonia was down in 13th place in the tight battle with Rodrigo Speraffico right ahead of him. So we've lost 2 cars from there, and that's Darren Manning as well. Darren Manning out of the race.
Front wing.
Yeah, so he's lost both front wings now, and that's just a couple of corners behind where Pizzonia's gone off. I wonder if there is a little touch of wheels or something that perhaps contributed to Darren then going off as well. Well, vaults the barriers. He's perfectly okay as well.
Hopefully
Fun coming through to back there, I would think. Let's see now then. Here's Pizzonia.
Oh, Pizzonia's on his own.
Gadang.
It's easy done there. The trouble is, as soon as you turn into that corner, it does open up on the exit, but if you get onto the marble, then it just pulls you straight into the barrier.
Friesacher finds his way through, but isn't that where Darren went off as well? I wonder if he collected some of the debris.
I think actually Darren was down near the Raskas, actually.
Maybe he collected some of the debris. Safety car is out, and again, nice little shot there of the statue of Williams. There is Darren, out of the car and out of the race. Well, the Arden team had strife with the gearbox in qualifying, and he was thrilled, I'm sure, to get third on the grid. But it is just after where Pizzonia went off. In fact, he's gone off just before Pizzonia. Pizzonia went a little further.
No, I think Pizzonia's gone off going into the first part of the swimming pool.
Ah, right, okay, so, yeah. So here he is being passed by Mark Webber as the safety car picks up the field with 26 laps completed. 6 laps into the Monaco Formula 3000 street race. The safety car out for the second time this race after a pair of incidents down around the harbour front at Monaco. Drivers, visors up, Jamie pointing out, desperately trying to gulp in some air because, Jamie, you were saying to me earlier, it's like being in a sauna. The air around the harbour front just never moves, there's never a breeze, and you really stifle in these cars.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly hot around there. I mean, the problem is that all of the buildings, they keep the heat in, and you know, with there being hardly any straights at all, there's no really anywhere to get any air into the car, and it just basically keeps you hot, and there's no really anywhere to rest.
Well, the safety car's lights are off. Mark Webber, his 5-second lead now down to absolutely nothing over Justin Wilson, Stefan Sarazan, Sébastien Bourdais, Riccardo Speraffico and Riccardo Maurizio are the men in the points. And Wilson, well, he was dropping back from Webber, and we were thinking probably more worried about the man in the 11 car, Sarazan, than about Webber, because Sarazan was still about a second or so behind him in 3rd place. Well, the visor's now being snapped down. The drivers know that the safety car lights are off. And for Mark Webber, a second time of asking in this race. He's going to have to get away safely from the safety car. He's already launched them off the grid once. Well, the lights were off before, and now they're back on again. So we continue round. I was just about to say I didn't notice Mark Webber in that shot, but that's because I was looking further back. So I won't say anything silly about where has he gone to, because there he was, reassuringly heading down towards Mirabeau Hotel. Well, she won't pick up the results of the Formula 3000 race yet, but in another few laps, we're now 27 laps completed on lap 28 of 45, so very close to 2/3 distance. By the time they go green again, there'll be 15 laps left to run. And Mark Webber, well, he used plenty of tyres early on to build up a 5-second advantage. Now I think we find, with Justin Wilson right behind him, whether he's got much left.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting on the restart to see, you know, how much pace Webber's got towards the end of the race. I mean, it did look earlier on that he was steadily taking time out of Justin, so, you know, hopefully he has got the pace in hand to make another break, but, you know, it's given Justin a second stab, and, you know, we'll see if he can, you know, make it going into the first corner, but you've got to be very careful.
Right, it's not me. The lights are off on the safety car again, so we may well be heading round for green flags and the restart. I'm sure that Webber won't be foxed. He will be ready to go the moment he sees a green. And I'm sure Justin Wilson will be right up his chuff this time. He didn't have a chance to make a restart. Look at him already taking a different line as they come out of La Rascasse, ready to go green again. Through the virage, Antony Nogan onto the start-finish line, looking for those green flags. And again, shocking restarting from drivers who consider themselves to be one step away from Formula One. It's Wilson in second place, Sarrazin in third, who have gone with Webber. The rest of them, forget it, guys. You will never get a drive in Formula One if your restarting is as shockingly poor as that, and rightly so. Jamie, that's just unforgivable at this level.
No, you need to be right at the gearbox of the car in front for sure. I mean, you know, you've got to optimise on the chance that you have. Oh, we got another car.
Oh, dear, and, well, let's see if they can get Joel Komathias out of the way. The pull coming down, he's got to get out of the car fast, because they will have that thing up in the air and gone. We've already had 2 safety cars, and I don't think the organisers will want to throw another one just for him. So the Swiss had better make sure he's out of the car, or he'll be dangling over the harbour front in it. Well, green flags still on the entrance to the tunnel, and I'm sure by the time they get round to La Rascasse, there'll be green flags there too. And we wait to see just what Webber can do at this restart. Look, Wilson's right with him, though, Jamie.
He is, yeah.
He's not going to let him go this time, not with only 15 laps to go.
1 second behind with the first 3 there, so quite close at the moment.
Yeah, interesting, the first 3, just half a second between themselves at the line, which was right nose to tail, but there was 1.3 seconds at the restart back to the 4th place now. I mean, that's really ludicrous. Bourdais had no business being so far back. You know, you've spent 2 laps behind the safety car. You can see the lights going out as you're coming down through the swimming pool complex and up to Rascasse. You should be so close behind the driver in front that you're actually pushing him out of Rascasse and up towards the final corner. And again, another one goes off. Oh, here we go. Bas Leinders, 2 KTR cars off at the same complex within a lap of each other. Well, the trolley jacks come out, and Leinders pulling the pressure on Haberfeld. Just a fraction too much. And do you know what? I think Haberfeld will probably survive that without any injury as well. I thought that bit of flying bodywork was part of his rear wing, but it wasn't. It was the nose wing off Leinders' cars flying up in the air. So, well, we may now, yes, yellow flags here. And, well, whoever's watching there down at Rascasse, it's a good viewing point. There's plenty of action for the cameraman to keep up with. Well, the leaders, presumably somewhere still out on the track. Yellow flags here at La Rascasse, so one of the, well, not overtaking opportunities, but prime lining up opportunities now. You have to be a little bit more cautious with your line as they come out of the chicane and down around the harbour front to the virage Louis Chiron. These 2 fast left and right, or the fast left and right sequence into the swimming pool complex. And there you can see the order. Further down, Mario Haberfeld holding on in 9th place, but still some way from the points, as is Tomáš Enge, despite all his efforts, unable to get up into 6th place yet. And Mark Webber still leading from Justin Wilson. Mark Webber across the line at full speed, 0.8 of a second ahead of Justin Wilson. And as before the safety car, Webber faster than Wilson. Wilson perhaps concerning himself a little bit more now with Stefan Sarrazin in 3rd place. Bourdais has closed up on them in 4th place, so he was shockingly slow at the restart, but has been quick since then. And then you've got Rodrigo and Riccardo Sperafico. Replay here of Riccardo Maurizio. Oh, no, it's not. Patrick Friesacher, I beg your pardon, going past Rodrigo Sperafico in the Coloni car. And that's that little group further back. There is Friesacher just joining onto the tail of that one. And here is our lead group. 4 of them together, and they're sort of shimmying away once more from the 5th place man, Riccardo Sperafico, in the Petrobras, the green and yellow machine, the Brazilian coloured car. And again, looks as though he's in for another tedious 12 or 13 laps, or 15 laps, in fact, before the end of this race, because he can't match the pace of the leaders, but he's quicker than everyone else.
There's 15 laps to go. I mean, I'm sure now Mark's starting to think about, you know, feeling the problems with the car and things like this now. You know, the tyres are gradually going off. Okay, he's probably had a little bit of a rest with the safety car, but, you know, the tyres will be degrading now, and he'll be concentrating on keeping the car nice and sweet and not making any mistakes and just trying to bring it home.
Well, one of the advantages for him, if he has set up the car to drive hard at the beginning and survive at the end, is that we've had 5 of the 45 laps, as you say, behind the safety car. So that's 5 laps in hand where he hasn't had to death the tyres, which gives him that, you know, if that's the way his setup is, the retrograde effect is going to be, you know, 5 laps later into the race, and therefore closer even to the end than he would previously have allowed for. So that little advantage, you know, kind of helping him there.
I mean, looking at Justin's car then when he was coming up through the Massenet corner, I mean, his car seems to be moving around a little bit more than Webber's in the front, so I think Justin's probably working harder at the wheel at the moment.
Sarrazin also working hard. You saw a little lock up there as they came down to the corner in front of the Mirabeau Hotel, and that's always a sign that the tyres are right beyond the limit, and whether that's a factor of the driver or more a factor of the tyres at this stage, probably a little bit of a combination of the two, because Sarrazin there, the dark blue car, really under pressure from Sébastien Bourdais, having lambasted him for shocking restarting. I mean, but he really, in all seriousness, Jamie, should have been right there at the restart.
Yeah, you know, I mean, he's wasted, you know, those last couple of laps, he's wasted just trying to close the gap when, you know, it was on a plate at the beginning of the safety car. So, you know, really, if he could have been right there now, he could have been hurrying Bourdais by now and maybe making a move.
Yeah, he would have been 3 laps closer to him, 3 laps further up his exhaust pipes, right. And you know, this is a podium position we're talking about. It's a couple of extra points, so it's, you know, it's, I mean, for professional pride it's worth the effort, but actually in terms of reward, you know, it's worth the effort to be standing on the podium at Monaco instead of 4th. You know, so again, I always think it's such an enormous opportunity missed at a poor restart.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's a chance that you can close the gap on the guy in front. I mean, not necessarily maybe make a move on the restart because it's so tight, but, you know, it enables you to get a fresh start. Oh, we got another one off here.
Put him right under pressure, and that is Pantano. So Pantano goes off. He's spun coming in, hit it backwards, taken the right side wheels off the car as well, I should think, judging by the way it's rocking there.
Yeah.
And this is looking like another safety car to me.
Probably lost the rear on the down change going into the corner. You go down to first gear there. The car's very light as you're going through the left-hander. You're banging it down into first gear, and it's easy to lock the rear wheels, especially once the tyres are starting to go off.
Well, it is a long left-hander as well, and pretty fast coming through there, and as you said, trying to brake, trying to steer, trying to change the car down, avoid locking the rears either with the brakes or with the brakes and the gearbox and everything, and inevitably sooner or later somebody won't be able to quite do it.
That's right. I mean, the biggest problem as well is you are actually going down to first gear, and it puts a lot of revs onto the car, and it's very, very easy to lock the rear wheels going into that corner.
So again, the Marshals working very fast with this system of trolley jacks. They've got the little wheel jacks to get the car up in the air and to roll it away. And the yellow flags are out there, but no safety car scrambled. So I really did think that the car was going to be blocking the track for a little bit, but those guys down there at La Rascasse, they certainly earned their free sandwiches for the weekend. They really work. 12 to go then. Mark Webber still leads from Justin Wilson. The gap 2.6 seconds, first to second. So Webber leads from Wilson. Wilson, Sarrazin and Bourdais, the close group in the top half dozen. Bourdais back to Riccardo Speraffico, starting to ease away now, a second and a fraction more. And Riccardo Speraffico, well, 6 seconds already ahead of Riccardo Maurizio, 5 laps after the restart. So Maurizio was nowhere near close enough either that, or he really has not got a quick car compared to the leaders. I think perhaps a combination of the two. He was nearly 30 seconds back before the safety car came out, so in fairness to Riccardo, it's probably not the sharpest set-up car out there, courtesy really of him being away from the cockpit for the last 8 months and then having to try and dial himself back in at Monaco of all places.
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I had the same problem actually last year. I mean, I hadn't driven a 3000 car for 8 months, and I mean, okay, I finished second in the race last year, which was a great result, but certainly not easy when you're coming back into the cars. I mean, you know, it's hard enough as it is, let alone jumping in and not having the race experience that the other guys have got.
Well, time, of course, at the track is very limited, and unless you've had a little bit of testing, and Ricardo really only had a little bit of testing, I know you had nothing at all, but, you know, again, as you say, under the pressure of keeping off the barriers, setting the car up and getting a good time, you've got to dial yourself back into the whole business again. So it is a pretty, you know, it's nice to have the call, but then you realise what you've accepted the moment you put the phone down and go, oh, blimey, this is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with Formula 3000 as well, it's not like Formula 1 where you get plenty of practice, you know, before the qualifying. It's straight into qualifying and, you know, there's no coming back, really.
Well, we saw Baz Leinders walking in there and see the way that the tyres are starting to slide around a lot here now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you get oversteer in the strangest of places. I mean, through the tunnel where normally it's easy flat on a good set of tyres, you know, towards the end of the race, the actual paint on the road, it causes the tyre to start slipping as well. So as you're turning into the tunnel, into the right-hander, if you touch some of the paint, that can just throw the car as well into oversteer, and it's very easy to even lose the rear there. So, you know, plenty of concentration at the end.
Nice to get a good slide going when you're doing 160, isn't it? Miles an hour rather than kilometres, obviously. You know, proper speed. So Mark Webber leading, and he is easing away. His last lap 1:31.3, and Justin's 1:31.6, and it's been so ever since the safety car pulled off. So his setup is still working at this final third of the race, and his gap now nearly 3 seconds, just a fraction under. So Webber has really got the car set up nicely, and with his experience, you know, a good solid year behind him last year, and with the Supernova operation around him here, they've really got a nicely set up car. I have to say, I think there's an awful lot of drivers on the grid who would quite happily step into Wilson's car as well. His isn't too shoddy either, but looks as though the combination of Webber and Carr working very well indeed. In these closing stages, only 13 cars still running. And we're seeing replays now of some of the incidents earlier on. Riccardo Sperafico, you saw locking up a moment ago. He's still running. And for some bizarre reason, 6 laps ago, that's Giorgio Pantano spin. We're seeing that again for the third time. Director getting ready with his replay tape for the highlights at the end of the show, undoubtedly. Still the battle for 6th place. It's been this way almost all the way through the race, actually. Riccardo Maurizio just a fraction ahead, not even a car length away from Tomáš Enge. And Enge, well, showing signs of frustration, still showing the car in every single opportunity, taking the weirdest lines just to try and unsettle Maurizio. And I have to say, actually, hats off to Maurizio. It hasn't worked at all. Yeah, Mauricio's doing a good job. He's keeping his head, you know, he's not making any mistakes. He knows that it's practically impossible to overtake on this circuit if you just keep the car, you know, online. You know, Tomáš Enge's got a big problem there. I mean, for sure, he looks like he's quicker, but unless you can get by, you can't do nothing. Catching is one thing, as we always say, passing entirely a different thing. And again, using a very different line all the way around in front of the pits, just to make sure that there is no respite from a mirror full of red. But, well, ultimately, you get the feeling that this may end up being a frustrating chase. Of course, at Monaco, even into the final lap, things can happen. As history tells us, even the greatest drivers have thrown cars off the road with victory within their grasp, and on the final lap as well. Most famously, perhaps, Sir Jack Brabham, dropping his car off the road in shock at seeing something that he wasn't expecting, i.e. his closest rival right in his mirrors, crashed on the final lap of Monaco. And that's, well, we know a few people in the Formula 3000 paddock who have crashed out of the lead at Monaco, but none so far on the final lap. Could yet happen. Mark Webber leading by 3 seconds. The gap fairly constant now. It's just tenths being swapped between he and Justin Wilson. But behind Wilson, 1.3 seconds back, is Stefan Sarrazin in 3rd place. And Sarrazin with Bourdais still for very close company for that final grid spot. So Bourdais trying for the final podium spot. Bourdais trying hard for 3rd place, as Tomáš Enge is here for 6th position. Just over an hour into the race, an hour and 3 minutes, and we are on lap 38 of 45, so it's probably going to run very close to last year's race distance. Last year, an hour and 18 minutes it took, and that was a longer race as well in terms of distance, down to 45 laps this year, but still with those 2 safety car periods slowing proceedings, and it will take a few more minutes to deal with this one. And situation in the top half dozen, fairly static. Maurizio having a little wiggle there coming out of Casino Square. And again, things like that, Jamie, as the chasing driver, I'm sure give you enormous heart and make you try extra hard for the rest of the lap to put the pressure on.
Yeah, I think there's going to be something happening maybe towards the end of this race with these two. I mean, you know, they're really close. I think that Thomas is putting a lot of pressure on Mauricio, and at the end of the day, Thomas is going to want some points. You know, at the end of this one, he's going to get nothing for 7th place, and you know, he's going to maybe make a gamble and maybe make a dive by the end of it. You know, we'll see, but you know, he's certainly close enough.
He is so close coming into the chicane out of the tunnel. I kind of get the feeling that that may be where we're most likely to see something, unless we see a mistake.
That's right.
And it's entirely possible that we will see a mistake by Maurizio, but you know, again, to benefit from that, Enge has to be so close behind him that it just makes it really tough to keep your car alive, and your fitness level has to be pretty supreme to be able to do it as well. Well, we know that these guys generally are fit athletes, but it really is piling on the pressure. Well, this battle is very close, but again, so too is the battle for 3rd place. 3rd and 4th place, Sarrazin and Sébastien Bourdais, having an all-French battle for that final podium finishing place here.
It's a great part of the circuit through the Casino. As you're coming up the hill after the first corner, it's up into 5th gear, completely flat, and then braking down into Massenet corner, it's down to 3rd gear, very hard on the brakes, but just a really quick sort of stab, and then literally you throw the car into the corner and straight back onto the power again, and just pushing it on through there. It's really challenging.
As they come out here into the tunnel out of Portier, I thought Tomáš Enge was very much closer there. It looked a little bit as though Maurizio had a problem coming out of the Lowe's hairpin and down into the next 2 right-handers. Enge nearly ran into him. He was so close, and again, even closer this time coming out of the tunnel. So Enge not having time to enjoy the delights of the circuit at all, because he is entirely focused on the gearbox of the car ahead of him. I should think 95% of his concentration entirely going into what Maurizio is doing, and he's just driving the car on autopilot now.
Yeah, you see again with the modern aerodynamics on the car, as soon as he's turning into the back, the gap then increases, so you know, Tomáš loses the gap then to the car. Oh, Tomáš made a mistake there, locked the inside wheel.
Dear, oh dear, so nearly collecting the barriers there at Virage Antony-Nogue, and again showing just how hard these two guys are trying, even though it looks as though they're just following each other around nose to tail like on the M25. This is absolutely edge-of-the-seat stuff from both men, and a mistake by one or the other will make all the difference, and that might be the defining moment of that battle. 39 of the 40 laps completed now, and Webber again reeling off another fast lap, fastest lap of the race so far, and that one 0.6 of a second quicker than Justin Wilson's last lap. So the gap goes out now from 2.9 to 3.5. Webber is certainly not letting up in these dying moments,
Not at all. I think that's, you know, that sent the message home now to Justin Wilson. I think he's going to be concentrating more on 2nd position for the championship as well. Okay, Mark Webber's, you know, he hasn't scored many points this season at the moment, but this win is going to help him. But if Justin gets 2nd position, you know, it's another podium. It's more points to the championship. There's still another 5 races to go, so, you know, he's going to be in a good position.
Well, Webber needed, wanted, desperately hoped to reignite the championship here, and he's done everything he needed to do. It's really been, I'm not going to say anything more than that because we've still got 5 laps to go. Justin Wilson in 2nd place. And then here comes the battle for 3rd. All right, they look like they're a little bit apart here, but that really is only half a second at the line. Sarrazin in the Prost Junior car, and in 4th place, Sébastien Bourdais. Bourdais driving for the French Dams team. An equipe of which, of course, you've got experience yourself, Jamie. And Bourdais, well, he's really sticking to it as well. Not as close as Enge is to the 6th place man, but he's really sticking to the task and trying desperately to work something here.
Yeah, he's still pushing hard. You know, he's still hoping that he can close in the gap and get that last podium position. You know, I think the Dams, you know, the car has they've got a reasonable car around this place. I finished 3rd there for them in '98. So, you know, there's every chance that he could still close the gap, but, you know, the laps are reeling off now.
Of course, Dams, a Formula 3000 and sports car operation, and he's been part of both of those. So, again, looking forward to coming back to Le Mans in a couple of weeks' time. We'll see you there.
That's right.
Should be fun.
That's right. Yeah, I've been back with the panel squad. Should be quite interesting.
Should be good indeed. Well, closing moments now of this fifth round of the FIA Formula 3000 Championship, the fourth ever Monaco Formula 3000 street race. Mark Webber leading from Justin Wilson with a handy gap now at nearly 4.5 seconds. Looks as though Wilson is taking it easy in the final laps. Across the line with 4 laps to go comes the battle for third place. Stefan Sarazan is third, Sébastien Bourdais is fourth. Ahead of them by some 4 seconds is Justin Wilson, and ahead of him by another 4 is Mark Webber. There is Webber's teammate, and Mario Haberfeld still in the middle of this battle. Now, this has been raging all the way through. You're looking at Fabrizio Golin in 8th. He's the first of those cars. Then Haberfeld with the yellow nose, and then it's Patrick Friesacher in 10th place. Riccardo Speraffico next up behind them, and then you can see the pale blue car of Jamie Malo behind Victor Maslow. There is Maslow in the red and white machine, and Jamie Malo there. So it's a good little group. I mean, they're all stuck together. They've been stuck together within sight of each other, almost within touching distance, all the way through the race. So they'll know they've been in a race, even if they've got not much to show for it right at the end.
That's right. I'd imagine they're pretty frustrated, to be honest with you. I mean, there's nothing worse than just seeing the rear of another car in front of you through the whole race and not being able to do anything about it. You know, I think if some of them can get any closer, then they might be looking at doing a move with a couple laps to go. But it looks pretty stalemate at the moment.
Well, only 13 of our 22 starters left, and you're looking at positions 8 to 13 there, all in one wedge, as close on the racetrack as they probably were in qualifying. In fact, Mark Webber showing a great deal more pace here in the race than he has in qualifying. And as we look at 6th place man there, Riccardo Maurizio some way ahead of Tomáš Enge, and I think once Enge has lost that little immediate contact, he's just dropped off the pace a fraction.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, he's just possibly lost the toe a little bit through the tunnel and things like that, so he's just dropped off, and it makes it more difficult to get back in touch again.
Well, after 2 safety car periods slowing us down, we're running a little late with the Formula 3000 race. Apologies for that. We will be going as quickly as possible after the finish to the Giro d'Italia, or on British Eurosport to the Superbikes. But we're watching Mark Webber and Justin Wilson with Sarazan and Bourdais reeling out the final few laps here. Riccardo Speraffico there in 5th place, still a long way ahead, 10 seconds and more ahead of Riccardo Maurizio, the final point scorer in this race. And from the restart, the positions before the second safety car have been reinforced. Webber still quicker than Wilson. Wilson still able to stay away of a clear